Good morning. My name is Liam Sosinski, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Microsoft. Over the past year, VMware customers have rapidly migrated from on-premise environments to Azure. However, many of you may still be running VMware workloads on premises, exploring alternatives for cost-effective, long-term solutions. The challenge is that many of the options may just be lateral moves, replacing current solutions without addressing broader goals. Some could keep you tied to the limitations of on-premise operations, but what if you could achieve more than just overcoming pricing volatility, such as scaling efficiently and setting up your organization for future success? Migrating to Azure offers unmatched scalability, flexibility, and cost efficiency. With the pay-as-you-go model, you only pay for what you use, while its robust security and compliance features protect your data. Beyond cost savings, Azure drives innovation with AI, machine learning, and advanced analytics, keeping you competitive in today's digital world. Its automation tools reduce operational complexity, freeing your IT team up to focus on strategic growth. With Azure, you're not just optimizing for today, you're future-proofing your business for tomorrow's digital landscape. Many customers initially aim to migrate directly to Azure IaaS or PaaS, only to find that the process can take them longer than expected and may require significant refactoring. That's where Azure VMware Solution comes in. AVS offers the fastest path to the cloud, allowing you to vMotion your workloads as is with minimal refactoring. You can manage your existing environments with the same VMware tools you already know, thereby enabling your IT team to leverage their current VMware skills while gradually building cloud expertise. For workloads that are cloud-ready, we certainly recommend moving to Azure's native IaaS and PaaS services. These services eliminate the need for VMware subscriptions and allow you to maximize the cloud's benefits. Azure offers flexibility and choice for your VMware workloads, and most customers end up migrating to a mix of both AVS and native cloud services. That's why for most customers, the most successful modernization journey starts with a migration to Azure VMware Solution. AVS allows you to seamlessly migrate your VMware workloads to a private cloud in Azure, leveraging a simple, secure process. Microsoft and VMware support license portability, enabling you to bring your existing licenses to Azure if you have recently renewed with Broadcom. AVS also allows you to optimize operational costs for maximum value through cloud elasticity and on-demand self-service provisioning. You can scale storage independently using Azure NetApp files or Elastic-SAN. Plus, AVS includes free extended security updates for end-of-support versions of Windows and SQL Server, ensuring your legacy workloads remain supported. By running your VMware workloads on Azure VMware Solution, you'll be able to modernize with over 200 Azure services. For example, you can integrate with Azure's AI and machine learning capabilities to drive operational efficiency and innovation. If you have goals to continue your modernization journey, from AVS you can refactor applications to native Azure IaaS and PaaS. I'll cover some of these options in depth later in the session. Azure VMware Solution is such a compelling choice because it's built on the principle of symmetry, seamlessly replicating your on-premises VMware environment within Azure. AVS not only modernizes your infrastructure, but also accelerates your cloud journey by providing access to VMware tools such as ESXi, vSphere, and vCenter for centralized management. Additionally, AVS includes vSAN, HCX, and NSX Manager with the flexibility to enhance your environment with other VMware services depending on your needs. Azure VMware Solution also enables your team to focus on what matters most. Today, how many people do you have working on all those components in the blue box to the left? Imagine if you could free up those resources and have them focus on modernization projects instead. By moving to Azure VMware Solution, you can do just that. AVS allows you to reallocate your team to strategic modernization efforts as all AVS SKUs are fully managed. This means that you get seamless technical support, regular VMware upgrades, and timely patches, all directly from Microsoft. In addition to time spent managing VMware on premises, how much time have you spent this past year planning and executing your hardware refresh for your VMware environment? Are you confident that your hardware and processors are up to the task? How many hours have you dedicated evaluating prices, optimizing performance, and ensuring you're using the latest technology? Now imagine eliminating all that effort completely. With Azure VMware Solution, you can choose from 4 distinct SKU types, all powered by Intel processors. These Intel-powered AVS SKUs deliver enhanced performance, greater efficiency, and robust security thanks to advanced hardware-based security features. Take Hastings Direct, for example, a large insurance company in the UK. After migrating to AVS with Intel-powered hardware, they experienced a significant performance boost, executing critical processes up to 4 to 5 times faster and positioning themselves to better serve their 4 million customers. Now they are primed for further innovation using cloud services from the Azure AI portfolio. Next, we'll dive into the tactical path of migrating to Azure VMware Solution and modernizing VMware workloads in Azure. I'm pleased to introduce my colleague, Amy Colyer, who is a senior cloud advocate. Amy, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Liam. In the next few minutes, I'll demonstrate how straightforward it is to implement AVS. It is essential to consider the adoption of AVS to fully leverage the benefits of migrating vSphere VMs to Azure VMware Solution. Then I'll go over migration without refactoring your workloads. Some migrations can be a simple vMotion, where others might need to be in bulk with a maintenance window. All of this is similar to migrating from data center to data center on premises. We also have a service called Azure Arc, which brings incredible Azure management capabilities to your VMware environment. Essentially, it extends the Azure control plane and gives you a central place for administering your workloads. Finally, Liam will discuss how to move beyond lifting and shifting and go into modernizing those applications. First, let's start with connecting and deploying Azure VMware Solution. As IT admins, design and utilizing best practices are crucial for success. So we have Azure landing zones. Landing zones are a way for you to incorporate best practices across critical design areas when deploying into Azure. And you see a lot of important pieces here, like identity and access management, business continuity and DR, security, governance and compliance, and more. Now, these are all top of mind when deploying any resource, whether it's on premises or in the cloud. So we put together an open source collection of ARM, Bicep, and Terraform templates into what's called the Azure VMware Solution Landing Zone Accelerator. This open source solution provides an architectural approach and reference implementation to guide you and prepare Azure Landing Zone subscriptions for a scalable Azure VMware solution. Not only are best practices baked in, but you can cut down on time spent designing and deploying because the accelerator also includes automation. Through the portal, you'll be prompted with design considerations like baseline alerts, monitoring, and security that you can align to your current business policies. You submit your answers, and Azure Resource Manager will deploy your AVS environment. It's important to know the Landing Zone Accelerator also includes design guidelines to aid in evaluating critical decisions, landing zone architecture, and a Microsoft-approved Azure VMware Solution reference implementation to test the deployed environment. Additionally, there are numerous reference architectures to address other typical network scenarios. However, fundamentally, this is the standard network topology for Azure VMware Solution that is commonly utilized. You can see we have our Azure VMware Solution deployed. Again, this is a private cloud as a service deployed in Azure. On the bottom, we have your vSphere environment, which could be on premises or in a colo. Then we leverage that express route to get high-speed, reliable bandwidth between all of these services. These are connected by an edge router on premises or wherever you're connecting from to the dedicated edge router in Microsoft Azure. And then you have the express route gateway into AVS. Because of this, we can utilize the Azure networking backbone and services to connect into AVS and your edge or data center locations. And like Liam mentioned, you now have access to over 200 Azure native services like security, AI, database services, and more. I really like this picture showing how all the pieces come together. Azure VMware Solution itself is designed to communicate seamlessly with Azure Services. This is achieved through subnet delegation and integration, which allows communications with Azure Service instances through private IP addresses, which is great because this means no traffic traverses the internet, ensuring secure and efficient communication for your data. Another key feature of this solution is private endpoint. It allows communication with Azure Service instances through a private link, which is essentially a reverse tunnel, further enhancing security and efficiency of communication. Then to maximize performance, it's recommended to deploy Azure resources you want to integrate with AVS in the same availability zone. This ensures top traffic performance and reduces latency. On the other side of the virtual network, you see we have the Azure VMware Solution private cloud environment. This environment is connected into Azure through an express route circuit, providing a fast path with a speed of over 10 gig. Next, we'll look at the process of deploying AVS. Deployment is easy, and there are basically 8 things you and your team need to do first, whether it's through the portal or through automation. Once you've completed a ticket for quota in your subscription and the hosts are ready, you can start deploying. First, you'll select your Azure subscription and resource group for management organization. Next is your private cloud details like name, preferred location, node SKU, depending on your compute needs and naming standards of your company. There's also an option to choose 2 availability zones where you'll have 2 hosts in one AZ and the other 2 in a secondary AZ in that region. This increases resiliency if one availability zone experiences an issue. But for just one availability zone, you'll need a minimum of 3 hosts. And of course, if you're using our well-architected framework, you'll have your private IP address block carved out and ready for deployments with using a /22 CIDR. Now you can see that the deployment has succeeded and AVS is up and running. In this scenario, we deployed 3 hosts to East US and did not stretch across availability zones. Once up and running, adding a new host can take around 45 minutes with just a click of a button versus the days of racking and stacking in your data center. And you can see in this screenshot, it looks and feels like VMware on-premises. It's the same vCenter client connected to ESXi host, but all running in Azure. You have the familiar tools to work with your environment, but the benefits of cloud and a path to modernization. We've learned how to deploy and connect AVS, but now we need to move our workloads there. And that brings me to HCX. HCX Enterprise is provided at no cost to all AVS subscriptions. HCX Enterprise features include OS-assisted vMotion that supports migration of non-vSphere VMs such as KVM and Hyper-V to AVS. Then there's replication-assisted vMotion using the vSphere storage replication to enable 0 downtime for bulk VM migrations. Mobility groups are logical groupings of VMs to migrate, like your application group. You wouldn't want to migrate your front-end application without the database. And then there's traffic engineering and mobility-optimized networking, which optimizes and avoids asymmetric traffic flows. Throughout the migration cycle, MON optimizes application mobility for optimizing for VM to VM layer 2 communication when using stretched networks, optimizing and avoiding asymmetric traffic flows between your on-premises and Azure VMware Solution and Azure. Then there are cold and live migrations of workloads from on-premises to AVS utilizing vMotion. These migrations run in a serial fashion, meaning just one at a time. But there is bulk migration. It allows you to migrate hundreds of VMs in parallel. This does require reboot, however, migrations can be scheduled so they can occur during a maintenance window. What's really neat is HCX provides layer 2 extension of networks from on-premises to the cloud to facilitate workload migrations without the need to re-IP. I've seen people utilize this to migrate quickly and retain the original IP address of their VMs. We've talked about migration with HCX and the many options you can choose from. Well, it's the same for automation. There are a lot of automation tools to use for deployment, and you need to think about which tool is suitable for your use case. These tools use the ARM API, whether you are using Azure CLI, PowerShell, ARM and Bicep, or Terraform. Maybe your team is already using Terraform or Bicep. They can use what they are familiar with. But a great use case I see is self-service for your organization. Self-service was always a goal at every company I worked with, and in any industry, it can save a lot of time. You can use a combination of infrastructure as code or IAC tools plus configuration management tools to get the VM deployed in its desired state. In this example, I can kickstart a workflow from my orchestration tool, something like Azure DevOps. It then passes variables to Terraform, which then deploys my infrastructure in AVS. Terraform can also hand over to PowerShell DSC to install software packages and ensure my OS remains in my desired state going forward. In this next example, I want to go a little bit further. As admins, we're not always deploying one VM. Let's say I want to deploy a 3-tier application, which mixes Azure Services, VMs running in AVS, and Azure Database Services. Here, the user goes to a self-service portal. They fill out the form. It talks to the API for my orchestrator. That then orchestrates deployment using Terraform to deploy Azure App Service, VMware VMs in AVS, and then still uses PowerShell DSC to configure the operating systems. Then I can have Terraform continue to install database services provided by Azure SQL. As you can see, there are no limitations. You can mix and match many Azure services with AVS. Now let's see how this looks in the portal and quickly go over the IAC options with Terraform and Bicep and ARM. Here I am in the Azure Landing Zone Accelerator, and you can see the options we have for automation. And by clicking here, it will open the ARM template to deploy through the portal. Each tab will prompt you for design questions unique to your environment. Now we can look at the code created for us to work with. You see we have what you expect for Terraform, the main TF file, required providers, variables, and of course the TF vars file so we can reuse variables for bigger environments. Once configured, just run your init, plan, or apply command to start deploying. Let's quickly see the other options. For ARM, you have the JSON file for deploying and the parameters. And of course, we have Bicep, which in my opinion is much easier to work with. So you really do have choices for IAC. We've connected and migrated. Now, how do we extend the management plane? For those unfamiliar, Azure Arc extends Azure Services, data, and tools to on-premises data centers, other clouds, and edge devices, enabling you to build applications that run across multiple environments. The key benefit is consistent operations across all locations, providing a unified set of services, tools, and management, which reduces complexity and eliminates the need for specialized expertise. And hopefully eliminating those overlapping tools that do the same thing that different groups in the organization use. With Azure Arc, you can use the same tools, security, and governance to manage your applications and resources. In the context of VMware migration, many customers require a hybrid approach, migrating many workloads to Azure VMware Solution, while modernizing others to IaaS and PaaS, and maintaining some on-premises. Azure Arc connects across these options, providing a common management plane that supports innovation everywhere with consistent development, operations, and security. In the next demo, I'll show you how easy it is to migrate into Azure, Arc enable an AVS workload, and immediately begin connecting to Azure Services. Here I'm in the HCX dashboard. It's been deployed with connections on premises and into AVS. I'll quickly show a layer 2 vMotion, maintaining the original IP of my VM. This is what it looks like for one VM, but these settings for destination, compute, and storage can all be inherited. Hitting go kicks off and the vMotion starts. You can watch the events if an issue occurs, but you can also see the VM is migrating and the percentage complete in this window. Now that it's complete, you can see it's no longer on premises, and if I go into my vCenter for AVS, the VM is now there with no downtime. Let's talk about Arc enabling. I've already Arc enabled this VM, so it shows up purple in the Azure portal, and now I can choose Azure Services to use, like enabling logs, monitoring, policies, but I'll do a common one I've seen, which is updates. It's great to be able to patch VMs, whether they're on Azure or on premises, in that same cycle. So I'll go through and enable and set a patch configuration with a maintenance window. Again, I just have one VM, but here you could pick multiple resources, and then creating it is really easy. And here you see it's applying, but we can verify and even change settings like if we want to reboot or not. Now let's quickly go into security and enable Defender for endpoints. You'll see under Defender for Cloud, there's environment settings, and you can see your subscription and setup plans. Because I work for Microsoft, this was already enabled, but this is where you'd go to select On for servers. Now that I've verified it's enabled, I can see there are already recommendations for my Arc-enabled workload, and I can choose what to remediate. Back to you, Liam.
Thanks, Amy. As we've seen, Defender for Cloud is seamlessly integrated into the Azure portal, enabling security threat detection and response within your infrastructure management workflow. For hybrid and multi-cloud database protection, it offers near real-time detection, vulnerability scanning, and proactive risk management. With full visibility across your environments, Defender for Cloud helps your teams identify, prioritize, and address risks early, ensuring compliance and preventing breaches. Additionally, it reduces threat mitigation time by 30% thanks to prioritized alerts and integrated incident investigations, according to a recent Forrester research study. Arc enabling your AVS workloads and leveraging Microsoft Defender for Cloud are common best practices we see many customers adopting. But what about those who are looking to take their workloads a step further and fully modernize in Azure? Let's start with databases. Many customers begin by lifting and shifting their databases to Azure VMware Solution. Or if you're looking for simplicity, Azure IaaS is also a solid option. For a more managed solution, Azure SQL Database for SQL Server and Oracle Database at Azure for Oracle are also great PaaS choices. But which option is right for you? It depends on your timing and technical needs. For a quick migration, Azure VMware Solution or Azure IaaS may be best. However, if you're running Oracle on Exadata or with RAC, Oracle Database at Azure is ideal as it supports those configurations and offers the fastest path. So why consider moving from AVS to native Azure options? Well, Azure VMs provide more compute and storage flexibility, and modernizing to PaaS solutions simplifies operations with benefits like superior analytics, automatic maintenance, backups, and updates. What about your applications? There are several paths to move to cloud native, with choices varying based on your need for control or simplicity. For simplicity, you can easily re-platform Docker containerized apps, .NET web apps, Java apps, and more to fully manage PaaS solutions like Azure App Service or Azure Container Apps with minimal or no code changes. For greater performance optimization, consider refactoring these apps to be fully cloud native using managed Kubernetes services like Azure Kubernetes Service and adopting API-centric architectures with Azure API management. The ecosystem of services available in Azure will support your organization no matter how your needs evolve over time. Keep in mind that as part of the VMware Rapid Migration Plan, reserved instances for Azure VMware Solution can be exchanged anytime for other Azure reserved instances. There's also up to a one-time $120,000 incentive to modernize with Azure available for 1, 3, or 5-year reserved instances on new migrations. And if today's demos didn't cover everything, we've got you covered with an interactive click-through demo that walks you through the modernization of an application, including SQL running on Azure VMware Solution. I'd also like to mention our Microsoft Learn Plan, which offers a structured way to build essential skills with clear learning outcomes and milestone tracking. And for a limited time, you can participate in the Migrate Windows Server Workloads and VMware Solutions to be AI-ready plan. It covers migrating Windows Server to Azure, deploying Azure VMware Solution using Azure Arc for hybrid environments, and mastering monitoring backup and identity management for Azure admins. Complete the 30-day challenge by March 31st and climb the leaderboard to earn a badge. We're here to support your VMware journey and help you future-proof your workloads on Azure. Thank you for tuning in.